Hey guys, so this is the TBR vlog part 6. I know I have been going way off my TBR picks. I still have a lot of them waiting right here. My last lot of picks, which were Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu, and Hand of the Sun King by TJ Greathouse, still up there in touch. Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. I did get a quarter of the way through this, but it's unfinished. And then my picks for April were Bone Cries Moon and Iron Heart's Dragon Magic, and I haven't picked up either of those yet. So this part is hopefully, if I can keep my brain in check, going to be twofold. One half will be trying to finish off a lot of the books that have been on my TBR for a while, so finishing series. The top 3 series I want to finish are the Sirena Legacy by Anna Banks, because I only have Of Neptune to finish in that, and then the Greta Helsing series by Vivian Shaw. I have books 2 and 3 to finish in that, but the audiobooks are really short. And then the Fetch Phillips series. So I've got Dead Man in a Ditch and One Foot in the Fade to finish of those. And those audiobooks are also quite short. So that's one part. And then the other part will be trying to get these 5 books that the TBR chart picks from the last 2 picks actually read and finished. I will definitely be reading Iron Hearts and Dragon Magic this month, because I can never remember the title of it. It's something Hearts and Death Magic. I can never remember what the thing is that goes in front of Hearts, but I read that, really enjoyed it, really surprised by it. You can see my cat there. Hi, Tig. And I will be getting to that. Bone Cries Moon is another one that I own and have owned for a while, just never read it, same as the other 3. So that is the goal in this, and there will be actually footage of me reading in this one. Plus tomorrow I go for my new tattoo, which for any anime fans out there is narrative themed, so I will be showing you that. But yeah, so I'm going to get back into it now. I am going to finish first Nippon on my Kindle, and the graphic novel adaptation, oh there's the other one, hi Duke, of Kafka on Shore, because both of those are pretty short. Hey babe. And then I'm probably going to finish off Meddling Kids, being as I've already started that and was really enjoying it. And then I'll probably finish off Greta Helsing, because I will binge read those back to back. They were adorable and cute and funny, before picking up something else. Trying to keep it as varied as possible so my brain doesn't want to read something else, if that makes sense. But when I've actually finished something, I will check in with you. Just finished Nippon. It was actually really good. We are following obviously Haruho as he goes down this dark path about whether he should free or kill the crested ibises. And as he gets closer to that plan, he makes arrangements. We learn more about him, and we learn that he was obsessed with this girl called Sakura, and he was arrested several times for stalking her. But during his stalking, he found out that she was having an affair with a teacher and tried to get her parents to listen to him, and they refused. And she eventually ends up unaliving herself because of it, which drives Haruho completely mad. Because he'd obviously known about this, he'd warned the parents, and no one would listen to him. He then makes his plans to go to Sado Island and deal with the ibises, and we get this whole sequence where he breaks in, incapacitates the guard, is trying to catch the birds. He's caught by another security guard who he stabs and kills. But during his time on the island, he also meets Fumio, who reminds him a lot of Sakura, and he kind of develops this sort of bond with her, but he's trying to keep himself separate. But then we get two sort of endings. So the one ending is just after this all goes down with the guards, he's caught by the police and obviously arrested. And then the second kind of ending, he's at home, and this entire story has been done by someone else, and Haruo has been an observer in all of that while he's continued being shut in. So the kind of question is this book a product of Haruho's overactive imagination while being a hikikomori, or shut in, or did he actually go out and do it and was arrested, and that second ending is kind of like what he imagines his life is, that he's now shut in and his life is continuing as it did, but only his room is now a jail cell. I'm more inclined to believe it's the overactive imagination of shut-in, because everything we've seen of Haruo leading up to that point is he doesn't really care for the outside world, he has no sympathy with his parents, he doesn't have any friends, he's content being alone. But Haruo is also very lazy, he doesn't want to work, he only wants to participate in things that really interest him, which are crested ibises. So he doesn't go outside, he doesn't really do anything apart from researching that. But on the other hand, it also could have gone down, he could have had a complete mental break after Sakura's death and gone to kill the ibises, ended up killing a security guard and was arrested and thrown in jail for it. There's no way of really knowing. And if you like books that have ambiguous endings with an unreliable narrator, there's social commentary and commentary on mental health and commentary on like people who are shut-ins and who are reclusive, should we pressure them to go to work and have families and have friends if that's not what they want? So there's a lot of commentary underneath it that I found really interesting. I think I'm going to give it 4 stars, purely because I would have liked to have seen more on Haruho's infatuation with Sakura and how everything went down with that, and him dealing with the grief of her death immediately after, rather than just a couple of sentences here. Also, it reads a bit dry, but I think that's due to it being a translation. Obviously I'm studying Japanese, so when I reach a point in proficiency where I can read the Japanese version, I'll do a comparison to see whether the writing was actually just dry or whether it's a product of it being translated. But yeah, it was overall a really good story. I really enjoyed it. It's only about 150 pages, so it was very quick to read. I was going to read the graphic novel adaptation of Kafka on the Shore after this, but the Kindle Arc version has some issues where the text loads but none of the images does, so I have had to report that to Edelweiss that the copy doesn't work on Kindle. So that's out of the question for the minute. So I'm probably, because that book was quite dark in places, I'm going to go to something a bit lighter, so I might start Dreadful Company by Vivian Shaw. I knock that off my TBR. So I'll check that back in with you a bit later. Hey guys, so I finished a couple more books, but at the end of this clip I'm going to show you my tattoo that I had yesterday. It took 6 hours and my leg is really sore, so forgive some weird camera angles today because I can't quite put the iPad down. But yeah, I finished 2 more books that were manga. So I finished Midnight Rain and On Doorstep by CTK. They're both standalone gay romance manga. Gave 5 stars to both, focus on more mature couples, and a lot of themes that aren't like in younger manga. It's more about learning to trust and communicate effectively. Each person in both of the relationships features have issues that own they're having to work with. In Midnight Rain, we've got Ethan and Mike. Ethan is in crippling debt from his father that he's paying off, and Mike's work is less than legal. And then on Doorstep, you're following Jimmy and Reese. And Jimmy is a petty thief, and Reese is a retired police officer with PTSD. I highly recommend both of those. I will be reading Never Good Enough by the same author. But right now I am going to be sort of tandem reading, going back and forth between Obsidian Butterfly, because it's not my favourite book in the Anita Blake series, and Oyasumi Pon Pon, or Goodnight Pon Pon, being as I have all of the omnibus volumes 2 to 7 on my Kindle, so I will be reading a bit of Anita Blake and then going to a volume of Goodnight Pon Pon and back and forth, and I'm hoping that I should be able to finish a good portion of Obsidian Butterfly today, if not all of it, as well as at least 2 or 3 omnibus volumes of Goodnight Pon Pon. So I'm going to crack on with that because I'm reading Anita Blake on my iPad, so I can't film while I'm reading that. And I will check in with you in a bit. Please forgive the really weird camera angle, guys, but this is my narrative tattoo. As you can see, it's a lot of the eyes, so there's top to bottom, there's Madara, Kakashi, Sasuke, Naruto, Itachi, Pain, and Obito. It's that of my anime leg. I do have another one, I'll show you. Here on my thigh, which is my Silence of the Lambs tattoo, and it says the tragedy is not to die but to be wasted, one of my favourite Hannibal Lecter quotes. So I thought I'd just show you that real quick. So just a quick update on what I've been doing. I did finish the 2nd volume of the Goodnight Pon Pon omnibus. Really enjoyed it. I like where the series is going so far. I've heard mixed things about it later on, but for now the first 2 volumes have been really solid entries, but they are chunky, about 400 pages a piece. So I decided I wasn't going to go on to volume 3. I was going to take a break and read something shorter, and since I have been in the mood for a lot of manga and graphic novels recently, I decided to continue that theme, and I started Chainsaw Man. So over the past few days, I have binge read the entirety of part 1, which is volumes 1 through 11. If you don't know Chainsaw Man, you haven't seen it around recently, it's a new dark horror fantasy manga and anime. Basically, you're following Denji. He lives in this world where devils and devil men exist in the same world as humans, and there are a group called devil hunters. After his father commits suicide when he's a child, Denji assumes responsibility of his humongous debt to the Yakuza, and he ends up doing a lot of things, selling body parts and all sorts of stuff to repay this debt. But in doing that, he meets a dog devil who was injured, and Denji saves its life and it helps him out. It doesn't merge with him yet, but he calls this dog devil Pochita. And him and Pochita make money doing lots of things. But an interesting thing you'll see if you look at an image of Pochita, Pochita has a chainsaw that sticks out of his head, little chainsaw. And when the Yakuza eventually come to kill Denji, we get a flashback scene where Denji basically tells Pochita if he's ever to die, Pochita can take over his body. This all happens very early in the first volume, so not really any major spoilers. And that does happen, and because Denji and Pochita merge, Denji becomes Chainsaw Man, which means he is technically classed as a devil man. He's not a devil, but he's not human. He's somewhere in the middle. So he is mainly human, but he acquires the abilities of a devil. And in doing this, he becomes a devil hunter. And we follow him on his journey as a devil hunter, killing devils, meeting other devil hunters, dealing with a lot of discrimination from humans towards devils and devil men, even though Denji knows from his relationship with Pochita that some devils can be good despite being devils. And part 1 basically is the Public Safety Commission arc, where we see Denji get his powers, learn about them, and we're introduced to a much wider conspiracy going on. And it is labelled dark and horror for a reason. There's a lot of gore, there's a lot of fight scenes, and it does get really dark in places. At one point, Denji becomes so depressed, he asked another character to literally treat him like a dog, so he doesn't have to think and feel for himself. Even though there is volume 12 and 13 currently published in English, and volume 14 has dropped in Japanese, I'm going to wait, potentially, because we don't know how long the manga is going to be, but I can essentially see it being 3 parts. So we've had part 1, part 2 is currently being published, and then part 3, the conclusion of the manga. And if they're about the same length each, we're going to end up with about 35 volumes. So I'm going to just hold off on the manga for now, and wait till part 2 is completed, or if part 2 is all we're getting, then wait till it's concluded before I binge read the rest of the series. But I do have 2 other series, in addition to Goodnight Punpun, that I have a lot of volumes of, and they are Kimetsu no Yaiba, or Demon Slayer, because I have been watching the anime. I've watched seasons 1 and 2. I will wait until season 3 is completed before I binge watch that. So, being as the manga is completed at 23 volumes, I'm probably going to binge read that. oh no, there's 3 other series. The second one is Jujutsu Kaisen, which is one I've also been following. And that, I think the manga is completed. I think. No, it's not. I don't know. I can't remember whether the manga is completed or not. But I know we are getting to the Shibuya arc in the manga and the Culling games. So I want to binge read that. And then one that I very vaguely remember part of the anime, but I didn't complete the anime, but I'm going to once I binge read the manga, is Tokyo Ghoul. And that is because one of my best friends from university, she adores Tokyo Ghoul. She even has a Toka tattoo. So I'm going to binge read that. Tokyo Ghoul is one of the shortest at 14 volumes in the main series and then 16 in Tokyo Ghoul Re, which is the sequel series. So that is on my radar for the next couple of weeks. The only books I have to finish this month are Obsidian Butterfly, because that is becoming mentally draining, so I want to try and finish that. And The Last Kingdom by Bernard Cornwell, which is the group read, and I haven't even started it yet. But those 2 I have to finish. And then I do have 2 blog tours in the first half of May. One is The Merry Dredgers, which I'll talk about a bit more in probably my May TBR. But yeah, I have to read that by the 5th of May, and then I have the second book in a duology, so I have both books to read in that by the middle of May. But I've recently saw this trend going around on TikTok where people basically turn around books on their bookshelves that they haven't read, and mine is appalling. I have a handful of books facing the right way, so that is my mission over the rest of the year, to try and turn around as many of those books as I can. So one that I picked up off my shelf, I do not know where in the hell my dust jacket has gone for this, but this is The Unity Game by Leonora Merrill. I did read a book of hers before, I think it was Women in the Waterfall, and I really enjoyed that, but this one, I got almost halfway through and then put it down. And I don't remember anything about it. I do remember it being strange. This is literary fiction, and it is weird. So, being as this is under 300 pages, I am adding this to my TBR to be one of the first books on my bookshelf that I can turn back the right way. Because I do have a vague recollection of things that were happening, so I'm going to basically reread to where I got up to, which is just before halfway, and make a decision about finishing it. And I will check in with that. And then obviously if I can get those 3 books completed before the end of the month, then I think I'm going to go on to my small stack by here and finish this off. So obviously I have Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero, which I have been a quarter of the way through for almost the entire month. I've not made any progress on that. Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I have read this one before and the second book. There is a 3rd book out in this series now, and potentially a 4th coming, and I really love these. They're I wouldn't call it a novel, they're like interconnected short stories. So when you read them initially, they seem like just short stories with a shared location in this cafe. But the more stories you read, you realise actually they're a bit more intertwined than that. but you can still read one story, put it down, one story, put it down, and it still makes sense. So I am going back to reread this and the second book, to read the third and currently the last published in English. So that's on there. And then I have Until the Last of Me by Sylvain Neuvel, because I do have a NetGalley arc of For the First Time, again, which is the last book in the Take Them to the Stars trilogy. I loved the Themis Files, really enjoyed A History of What Comes Next, but I never continued. Like, I really enjoyed A History of What Comes Next. It wasn't, for me, on the same level as the Themis Files, but really delved into the elements that I missed in the Themis Files. Like, the Themis Files is a lot of action, a lot of stuff going on, but for me it lacked character development and character relationships. This series is a lot more about interconnection between people and their relationships through history and through time. But it lacked some of the action, so it's like a split. But I will be finishing this series in the next couple of weeks. And then I have The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. So I read the guest list, really enjoyed that. I do have an ebook copy of The Paris Apartments, and I wanted to pick up The Hunting Party, because if I remember correctly, The Hunting Party was her debut, then the guest list, then The Paris Apartment. So I have this to read. So that is kind of what's on my radar and my reading list for the next week or so. Whether any of that's going to actually happen or whether my mood reading is going to take me down an entirely different route remains to be seen. But yeah, that's the plan. So I will cap off this TBR blog part 6 on a bit of a disappointment, because I have read none of the picks from the TBR jar for the past 2 months. But because I'm in a big mood reading thing right now and I just don't want to follow the TBR, I am going to put it on hold and just get out of this weird mood I'm in. And then May, initially I'm not going to pick anything out of the TBR jar, but I'm going to focus on the 3 books that were from March's TBR pick, which were Meddling Kids, The Hand of the Sun King, and The Kingdom of Back, and the 2 from April, which were The Bonecrest Moon and Iron Hearts and Dragon Magic. So those 5 are going to be with the 3 blog tour picks, my initial TBR for May. And then if I manage to complete all the TBR picks from March, April, then I will pick more out of the basket for May. But yeah, I'm going to conclude that. I will do a wrap up at the end of the month and my May TBR video. But that's what I'm doing right now. So because I've read a lot of manga and I do want to ease myself back into reading novels, because they're a different headspace for me, I'm gonna go and make a little dent in this, and go from there, basically. So I will see you in the next video.